All right. So again, whether you're here because you want to know more about how to prevent Alzheimer's, maybe you're just thinking towards dementia, or if you're just wanting to stay healthy in general, this talk is going to be very beneficial to you because we're going to be talking about toxins, which can cause a lot of different conditions. But when we tend to hear the word toxins, I think a lot of us think of, we start thinking about like hazmat suits. We start thinking about um, looking at like toxic chemicals that we would know for sure that they're toxins, that there would be signs all over the bottle that we have of whatever chemical. It would be very obvious that we're getting exposed to a toxin or that we need to be very careful around this product. But that's really not what we're going to be talking about tonight, because those are going to be pretty easy to know that they're toxins. But what we're talking about is the things you get exposed to every day that it's actually allowed to be in your, whether it be in your food, whether it be something that you're using to clean your house. So we're going to be talking about the toxins that we're exposed to that don't have that kind of warning to them. And so you would never know that it's a bad thing, because you would think, well, it's approved by the FDA. It's on my shelf at my grocery store. It's on my shelf at Target. So it can't be that harmful for my health, because they wouldn't allow it on the shelf if it was. And we're going to talk about that tonight, because there is a lot of things that we're exposed to every day that are not that don't have these hazardous waste signs on them. They don't have you wearing a hazmat suit to be around it, and yet they're still very toxic to our bodies. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So if you remember back in the 1980s, I think it was, because I remember this, I was just a young kid, and I remember them saying that they found some of the reasons why some people are developing Alzheimer's. And what they found was that it was actually aluminum pots and pans, aluminum cans. So basically what they were saying was aluminum could set you at risk for Alzheimer's disease. And that really hasn't changed. There's some more research on there showing as far as to what degree does it impact a person with Alzheimer's disease. But aluminum was found to be a metal that actually predisposed, or it got people that were predisposed, I should say, to develop Alzheimer's disease. And so we saw the aluminum cans, we saw aluminum pots somewhat taken off the market. I don't know if some of you know what they did with aluminum cans. I'll explain that in just a second. But aluminum pots, what they decided to do instead was they came out with new types of pots and pans. And one of the most common ones were ones that were coated with Teflon. And so now we're seeing more research coming out about those pots and pans, that those pots and pans were also not healthy for us. And so a lot of times what we find is that we find something that's harmful to our health, and then what happens is they take it off the market but replace it with something that really isn't that much better for us, or in some scenarios even worse, because if you know what they did with aluminum cans and pop cans is they started lining them with plastic. And so if you ever really looked inside your can that has food in it, you'll see it's very smooth inside, and you can see that it's really fine layer of plastic on it. Now, the problem with that was they discovered that BPA, which is what you find in plastic, is harmful to our health as well. And so now you have to worry about getting cancers from BPA. You don't have to worry as much about Alzheimer's because you don't have aluminum touching your food, but now you have plastic touching your food. And so then they came out with that they needed to ban BPAs out of plastics, and they replaced it though. So what did they replace it with? Not sure, and I'm not sure it's any healthier than what's already in plastic, the BPA. So you can see that you can get exposed to toxins just from the items that we store our foods in, the item that we store our beverages in, or the items that we cook our food in. And so we can get exposed to toxins that way. Other places that we get exposed toxins is just from whether it be things that we're taking for medicines. I don't think many people know this, but a lot of medicines actually have aluminum in them. A lot of medicines, even vaccines that we can get exposed to, can have chemicals in them that are used to preserve the virus or the vaccine or to preserve the medicine. And so then we can be taking medicine for a disease that we have, like Alzheimer's disease, and that medicine itself can actually be a thing that's a toxin that can impact how we're doing with that disease of Alzheimer's or other diseases for that matter. And so as we get exposed to these toxins, our body has to do something with them. And so we're going to talk about that tonight because yeah, we get exposed to a lot of different toxins, but what can we do about it? And again, that's some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. So these are some statistics regarding the chemical industry in our country. And so I won't spend a lot of time going through each one of these little squares, but one thing I want you to see is that it's $1 trillion industry developing chemicals. And some of these chemicals that we've developed have done amazing things for our society. You look at what plastic has done for our world. You look at how much it's impacted the medical industry, and in a really good way. We can see how it's impacted our lifestyles and such. And so you can see that it's a $1 trillion industry, not $1 billion industry, but $1 trillion industry, these chemicals. And so since the 1920s, over 76,000 new chemicals have been introduced into our world. And like I said, it's done a lot of good things, but the problem is it's also done a lot of bad things. If you look at 76,000 different chemicals, and you look at how much they've been researched and how much they've been tested to see if they're healthy or not, if they're harmful to our bodies or not, you'll actually see that a very small percentage of them have ever even been tested on animals, let alone humans. And almost none of those new 76,000 chemicals that are introduced to our world have ever been tested together. And so I'll give you an example of that. So since the 1920s, plastic has been introduced to our world. Okay, so we have plastic that's new. We've never seen it up until a little over 100 years ago. And then aspartame is another one. Aspartame is a chemical that lots of people, there's a lot of controversy around it, whether it really is something we should be ingesting or not. And we also know that plastic has been implicated with causing cancers with the BPA that they've added to it. And so now let's put aspartame and plastic together, and how do they impact someone's health? Is it synergistically, meaning when something has synergy, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It means that 1 + 1 maybe is equal to 3 or 5. And so these chemicals could enhance each other. So the problem with that is aspartame in a plastic bottle, people drink that every day. They're drinking diet pops, they're drinking drinks that have artificial sweeteners in them, and they're stored in a plastic bottle. And we don't know if those two things together are harmful to us or not harmful, because no one's done any kind of studies on those chemicals together. So the problem with all these chemicals that we're getting exposed to, some can be good for us, some may not have any negative effects to us, and some of them can definitely have them, and we don't know what it's like when you have them in combination. So when you look at this industry, how much money they make, this is going to be a very hard industry once something makes it to the market to try to get that thing off the market, unless it's showing and proving that it's causing a lot of harm in people, because it's making a lot of money. If you look at how many jobs it provides over 120 million jobs. And so you can see that this is an industry that because of its size, it has a lot of power behind it, and trying to fight that power is never easy. And so you might see that, well, you know, these toxins, these chemicals that are in our world, they can't be that bad because they've got them approved. But again, you're dealing with a lot of money and a lot of lobbyists and such. And so you are dealing with stuff that is harmful for us, that is on the market, and it probably won't get taken off the market because the money that it brings into an economy. So when we look at some of the things that these toxins can cause, some of these chemicals that we get exposed to on a daily basis, from lead, manganese, ethanol, mercury, arsenic, carbon monoxide. These are things that actually probably all of us get exposed to on a daily basis, but I doubt that very few of us would ever think we're getting exposed to these things on a daily basis. And so if you look at what those chemicals right there can cause to the brain, dizziness, memory loss, vision problems, issues with balance, mood swings, and numbness or weakness, those are all neurologic disorders. And then all of those things are implicated with those chemicals, can cause those type of issues. And like I said, even at small levels, a lot of us are getting exposed to this. And at small levels, it may not seem like could be bad, but what about the accumulative effect of being exposed to these chemicals? And so it can cause all kinds of neurologic issues. And so just to give you some example of where we can get exposed to those things that I just talked about, I don't know if anybody followed a few years ago, Flint, Michigan. They had to shut down their drinking water to the city because it had too much lead in it. And so pipes that old pipes that are being used can have lead in it. It can be found, it can be contaminated because of factories using poor techniques upstream, and it gets in your water, and now you've got lead in your water. So you could literally be being exposed to lead in our water. Probably most of us actually don't realize this, that all of our drinking water has some a little bit of lead in it. And so with Flint, Michigan, it got to the point where it was beyond what they considered a safe level. And so that's why they shut down the drinking water in that city. Arsenic, there's lots of different places that people can be exposed to arsenic, but one of the big ones that people don't realize is that the food industry, it can actually get into our food because of some of the farming techniques that we use. Mercury. Mercury is toxic. I don't know if you remember as a kid, maybe breaking a thermometer and getting to play with that mercury because it's kind of cool to play with. It stayed together as this puddle of mercury. So we play with it, and then we found out that mercury actually causes neurologic disorders. And so some of the places that we can be exposed to mercury, probably the biggest one is that a lot of the silver amalgams had mercury in them. So a lot of us, especially as if we're a bit older, we got exposed to mercury through those silver amalgams. And the problem with that is mercury is easily made into a vapor. What causes it to go into a vapor is when you have mechanical forces on it. So grinding. And so if you're grinding your teeth and you got a silver amalgam and it's made of about 50% mercury, it's starting to gas out, and then that gas can go right up into our brain, because our brain is right by our mouth. So actually dental health is a huge factor when it comes to people dealing with brain health issues. And one of the reasons for that is we get exposed to mercury through those silver amalgams. Aluminum, like I had mentioned, aluminum has been used in pots and pans. It used to be used as storage containers. And like I said, now we've just lined them. So we still use the aluminum, but it's lined with plastic. But what about the aluminum foil that you use to put on your, and we're just as guilty of this in our house, is you put aluminum foil on a pan, so you don't have to wash it. You cook something on it, you take that stuff off, and you just crumple up the aluminum foil and you throw it in the garbage. And so that food is touching that aluminum, and so that aluminum can leach into that food. So we get exposed to aluminum that way. Lead and cadmium, both those again can be found in groundwater contamination. And so if you're growing food close to that, to factories and such. They could be, that water that they're watering those plants with can be with lead and cadmium, and now it gets into your food. And so they're finding high levels in conventionally grown foods. They're finding high levels of lead and cadmium. And cadmium is another chemical that's been implicated in causing brain health issues. So you can see that there's a lot of places we get exposed to into our environment, but we can also get exposed to these toxins just in our personal lives. We don't have to be out by a big factory that's chugging out big clouds of black smoke. We can literally find all kinds of toxins in our own houses. And so one of the worst ones out there is dryer sheets and dry cleaning. And the big reason why those are so bad is because not only do they have a lot of toxins in them, but those toxins spread on the clothes that you wear all day long. So you literally are wearing that toxin all day long. And then the problem is if you sweat or you're being active and those pores or your skin open up, then those toxins can get in. So think of your skin, it's a barrier to let, kind of like a filter. What it does is it lets certain things in, but then it's supposed to prevent certain things from being able to get in because they're smaller or they're not absorbable. But if we're wearing it, we're sweating, we're opening up those skin pores, those chemicals can get into our body. So another thing then would be looking at antiperspirant. And so it's a very interesting thing when you think of antiperspirant, because if you think about what the purpose of sweating is, you'll see that one is that it helps you cool your body off. Okay, I think most of us know that, but it's also to help your body to detox. That when you sweat, you try to get chemicals that are in your body out of your body. And so the problem then is if you use an antiperspirant, the purpose of an antiperspirant is to stop you from sweating. So it's going to stop you from being able to cool your body off, but it's also going to stop you from being able to get rid of those toxins. And so I get it that, hey, I don't want to walk around stinking all day long. I think we all know people that don't want to use antiperspirants, they don't want to use deodorant, and they think, man, they really need to, but yet they won't because they know that it can cause problems. But one thing I've definitely noticed in people that are healthier is that when you eat poorly, you smell poorly. And so when you eat crappy food, you smell like crap because you're eating this food, your body's going to expel that out of your skin and you're going to smell that way. And so, of course, when we're eating foods like garlic and curry and that kind of thing, we're going to smell like that too. Not that those are bad things for us, but so we don't want to stink. I get that, but we also don't want to use antiperspirant to stop ourselves from sweating. And one of the big issues with antiperspirants too is, I don't know how many of you know what's used to stop you from sweating, but aluminum is the #1 ingredient that they'll use to stop you from sweating. And we just talked about how aluminum can be toxic to our bodies. And then you're putting it into a place, typically like your armpit, you're putting it into a place that's very, that opens up its pores a lot. And so then it can really get into your body easily. And so with an antiperspirant, you really don't want to use it because it's stopping you from sweating. And it's also using a chemical to do so. So what can you do instead? Because you don't want to walk around stinking. Well, there are natural deodorants. Ones that have essential oil base are probably the best ones to use. So you don't have to stop yourself from sweating, but you can put things on your body that make you smell better and don't stop your body from doing its normal process. And that is, if it's supposed to sweat, then it needs to be able to sweat. We also see it with makeups. Makeup is a huge problem because they use a lot of metals in makeup. They use a lot of chemicals, preservatives and such. And if you smear that onto your body, and it's on your body all day long, that's a huge issue. The other thing it can do is it clogs your pores. So then you're not able to detoxify through your skin, and then it can absorb right into through your skin as well. And so when you look at makeups, there are companies out there though that are using natural makeup. Something like Beauty Counter. I think Arbonne is another one. I'm sure that there's other companies out there that are using the lowest toxicity possible with their makeup to make it so that it's a lot healthier than a lot of makeup that's out there on the market today. So these are some of the things that we get exposed to just in our every day-to-day life. Other things can definitely be with the food industry, especially what we want to store our food in today. So if you look at styrofoam, storing food in that, especially if you're getting to go, and I think we've all seen this with COVID, that going to restaurants, some restaurants, even when they had people eating there, they still gave you disposable plates. They didn't let you eat off of a glass plate. I have no idea why they thought that would be better. It's probably just simpler. But that being said, putting hot food on styrofoam, not a good idea because it can pull some of those toxins that's in styrofoam. Plastic water bottles, plastic again. They've taken BPA out of most plastic, but what did they replace it with? My guess is nothing more, nothing better for you than what BPA is doing. Another thing that you see is there's a lot of convenience food. There's some of the convenience food that we have. It's put in plastic, it's covered in plastic, and then you put it in the microwave and heat it up in plastic. And so the problem with that is when you heat up that plastic, that makes it even easier for those chemicals to leave the plastic and go right into your food. And so we can see that that's a major problem. Also, go to the grocery store today, go to Costco. When I was growing up, I remember going to the grocery store and everything was just kind of on piles, and you just grabbed it, put it in a paper bag, or you just put it in your bag and you bought it that way. You didn't have plastic all over it. Now what you're seeing in Costco, you go buy some apples, and each apple is in its own little, like kind of like an egg carton type of thing, instead of just apples being freely on the shelf. So the problem with that is, of course, again, you're exposed to these plastics. This food's touching plastics all day long, and that can be toxic to our bodies. So I mentioned silver amalgams. So silver amalgams, 50% of the amalgam is actually mercury. So again, what a lot of people are doing is going, I did this myself, going and replacing that silver amalgam with an epoxy, or else using porcelain. I got to tell you, when I was getting mine done, I'm not sure the epoxy was much healthier, to be honest, just because the smell that it smelled super toxic. So I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll probably find in 10 years that maybe we shouldn't have been replacing it with epoxy. If you can do porcelain, that's definitely the better way to go, but it's a lot more expensive to do porcelain fillings. But so a lot of people though are getting rid of their silver amalgams. When you do that, you really want to make sure that you're going to a dentist that knows what they're doing. I've heard of people getting those silver amalgams replaced and actually ended up with mercury poisoning because of it, because they're drilling on that silver amalgam to get it out of the tooth, and that heats it up, and so then that mercury can become vaporized and go right into your bloodstream. And so you want to be going to typically what we tell people is find a biologic dentist, which is a dentist that knows how to remove silver amalgams. They use like a dam across your mouth. They use ozone while they're doing it. And so it's not, they don't take it lightly. They don't just try to get in there and do it quickly and be done with it. So really want to get that mercury out of your mouth, but you want to do it the right way. Our cleaning supplies. Cleaning supplies can have all kinds of chemicals in them, and those chemicals can absolutely be toxic to our bodies. And so the problem with that, of course, is that we clean something off and then we maybe cut food on it. We might put the meat that we're going to cook that night on that same countertop, and those chemicals can get right into our body. We can also be inhaling those chemicals. And so again, just another way for us to get exposed to toxins. Indoor chemicals, they actually have done studies now that are showing that we are actually exposed to more chemicals indoors than we are exposed outdoors. So it used to be, I remember as a kid growing up hearing about the acid rain over the Great Lakes because of all the factories around the Great Lakes and such. And so it was scary to want to be outside. You thought that it'd be better if you just hid out inside your house and got away from that acid rain. But we're seeing that there's a ton of chemicals. In fact, like I said, we're getting exposed to more chemicals indoors than we are outdoors nowadays. So if you look at some of the building products, a lot of the building products need to be fire resistant, and so the chemicals they have to put in there to make that building product fire resistant, those chemicals will outgas for the life of that when you have that house. So know that inside you're getting exposed to those chemicals from whether it be the stuff they put in your wall or carpets. If you've ever gotten new carpet in your house, it's a very distinct smell in your house, and it's usually formaldehyde that you're smelling because they again will put fire resistant, fire retardant chemicals into your carpet, so that again, if your house catches on fire, it's not going to burst up in flames. But again, the problem is those chemicals can really impact our health. Mattresses are probably one of the worst for the amount of chemicals they put in them. Again, they want to make them fire resistant or fire retardant, but the problem is they those chemicals can be harmful to our health. And you think about it, you're lying in that bed a third of your life. And so you're getting exposed to chemicals pretty significantly. So, anyways, we can see that with some of the things that we're exposed to in our houses as well. How about that new car smell? I think we'd all agree that it's a really cool smell. One is that it means you just got a new car. There's something about that smell that we just love. It kind of got a good appealing smell, I guess, to it. But the problem is that's all the chemicals in that car that are out gassing, and from the plastics to they spray your car to stop from like stain resistance, and on the upholstery and such. And so now again, you're just getting exposed to a ton of toxins, and again, we're kind of drawn towards it, yet it's something that's harmful to our health. So other places that we exposed to toxins, as I was talking about the food, how food is in different packaging and such, but how about what we spray on our foods? If you look at that very first slide that I put out there, I'll go back to it, but that very first slide was people out spraying in a field. Well, that's a field of food that people are going to consume. So it's very interesting to think we could spray stuff on our food like that and not think that it couldn't cause problems when people have to wear a hazmat suit to put it on. If you look at farmers, I grew up on a farm, so I seen it, and I still will see it when I go back home, is that we spray our food with chemicals to kill the weeds, to kill the bugs. And to handle those chemicals, you have to be wearing a hazmat suit. Now, as a kid, I remember my stepdad didn't even have anything on, wasn't wearing any kind of like breathing device, wasn't wearing any kind of mask, wasn't wearing rubber gloves, even though he should have been. But they've learned better, and so now they do. But the problem is that's what we're spraying on our foods. And again, we think that for some reason that is not going to impact our health. So we spray these chemicals on our foods to either kill the weeds, to kill the bugs. But now the new farming techniques are that you spray that chemical on the food itself to kill it so that you can harvest that food when you want to harvest it. And so the problem with that, of course, again, you're spraying more chemicals on your food, and that chemical can definitely get into our body. And again, you have to look at it like, okay, maybe a little bit's not going to be harmful to me, but what if it accumulates in my body? That could very well, over time, create major problems. And I mean, we're seeing it with a lot of the problems we see in America today, with the cancers that we're seeing it in little kids now. And so it does create problems. So what about in the brain? How does it impact the brain? So I mentioned earlier about some of those chemicals that what those chemicals can do to our brain. They can cause memory loss, dizziness, vision problems. They can cause behavior issues. So when you think of someone that's got Alzheimer's disease because of exposure to toxins, there's a few things that you'll see that's kind of typical of that type of Alzheimer's disease, or at least the reason why those people have developed Alzheimer's disease. And some of the things to watch for is one, and the big one that you'll see is that usually that person's going to be younger than you typically see someone that's got Alzheimer's disease. And so a lot of times, and I remember we used to go see Natalie's grandpa who had Alzheimer's disease. My stepdad's dad had Alzheimer's disease. And a lot of times you go to these facilities and you'll see most of the people all look about the same age, maybe 80s, 90s even. But you don't see them a whole lot younger than that. Maybe you'll see them in their upper 70s, but then you'll see there's one person that's in their 50s and 60s and wonder that, like, what happened there, why this person could have this. And a lot of times it can be due to an exposure to toxins. The other thing that you'll notice with those people that have Alzheimer's due to being exposed to toxins is their behavior is usually pretty aggressive behavior. They usually get very agitated. They get easily angered, and can have a lot of rage and breaking stuff and such, because that's typically how it'll play out with someone that's dealing with this toxic overload. And so we've spent a lot of time so far talking about some of the toxins we get exposed to and where we get exposed to. And the big reason I spent a lot of time on that is I want people to realize that it's not, it's everywhere in our world. It's going to be hard to get away from it. You really can't. But I want people to realize that it's not the things that you're finding out there that have like a biohazard or a hazardous waste sign on it. These are the things that are being sold to us to be used every day, and we're using them, and they're causing us to develop a toxic overload. So really what you want to do for overall health, and every one of us can benefit from this, is that you want to reduce your toxic load. You want to decrease the amount of toxins that you get exposed to. Now, I think that we all have probably, I'm just going to skip to this real quick. I think we've all know who this guy is. Sorry, there's still a fly flying around here. If you don't know who this guy is, you're probably 30 or younger. But if you know who he is, George Burns. I think we all think of this guy, right? When we think of toxins, we think, well, okay, George Burns smoked cigars, drank whiskey. I don't know what else he did that, but he probably wasn't the picture of great lifestyle, and yet he lived to be a really old age. And so we think, well, if he could do it, then how come I couldn't do that? How come he has that ability to do that? Well, one of the things that we're going to talk about in a little bit is genetics do play a big role in your ability to get rid of toxins. And so some people have been blessed with the ability to get rid of toxins, get rid of them pretty easily. And so they can expose themselves to a higher toxic load. But really, we all want to try to minimize the toxic load that we're exposed to. So really important that we try to look at what we're getting exposed to toxin wise and what we can do to get rid of those toxins so that we don't have this high toxic load. So when it comes to toxicity, how would you even know if you're having an issue with toxins? How do you know that your health problem is related to toxins? And so there are a few different tests that a person can do. Three of them that I see a lot of people will use in the medical industry are, you can get a blood test that shows what chemicals, and typically it's going to test for like heavy metals or metals in your body. So you can get a blood test. And so there's one called Quicksilver that a lot of people will get ran. I'll run it on people, and that's going to look for lead, arsenic, and mercury. And so those are three ones that we know are implicated with Alzheimer's disease and obviously other health issues. And so a blood test could be a way to determine it. Another one would be a urinalysis. And the urinalysis is going to look at potentially you could have those chemicals in the urine, or it could be as your body tries to detoxify it, it breaks it down to these certain other components. So you might find those end products in someone's urine. So they're trying to get rid of it. And then another one would be looking in people's hair as it's going through our body. It can accumulate in our hair. So you can do a hair analysis and see if a person's got high levels of these toxins in their body. So some of the problems with this, though, is that we can accumulate toxins into our body, and we try to wall them off. We try to separate them actually from the rest of our body, because our body knows that it's a toxin. And if we can't get rid of it by detoxifying it, then what we'll do is we'll put it in a place that's going to be the least harmful to our bodies. And a lot of times what we do is we put that in fat. And so the problem, though, is if that isn't really circulating in our body, then like in our blood, if you did a blood test, then what you would find is that you would find that you might not see those toxins. That's the same with hair. If your body's not really good at detoxifying, then you might actually do a hair analysis in someone and see that they actually have really low levels of metals. In fact, if you saw that in someone and they're living in the world like the rest of us, and you're seeing that they have really low levels of metals in their hair, then actually it's a sign that they're not really good at detoxifying their body, and they're actually accumulating more toxins in their body. And you actually see that with urinalysis too. You could look at it and say, hey, it looks pretty good. I barely see anything in this urinalysis. And the problem is they just might not be very good at getting rid of toxins. So really, these are tests that can be done. And like I said, I run them on people, but you have to take them with a grain of salt. You have to know what you're looking for. And you also have to understand that you might not see those toxins because your body has done a pretty good job of hiding it out so that it's there in your body, but it's not being circulated through your body. So so that's some of the limitations. And another limitation with getting testing is if they're only going to see what they're looking for. Meaning, if I'm taking your blood and all I'm looking for is mercury, arsenic, or lead, then I'm not going to see if you have cadmium. I'm not going to see if you have some type of other chemical or some type of other metal in your body. So really important to realize that those tests do have some limitations. So when you look at other ways to test, and we do this in our office, is we test for chemicals, toxins, heavy metals through muscle testing. And so if you're not too familiar with muscle testing, I'm not going to go into great detail on it, just because muscle testing is, I probably have to do a whole class just on muscle testing. But what muscle testing can do is it's looking at through energetic techniques to see if you are either resonating with a substance or dissonating with a substance. Resonating meaning that it's something good, dissonating meaning that it's actually something harmful for our body. And we can actually do testing. So Dr. Rob at Vallejo, he does use muscle testing to determine whether someone has these chemicals in their body, if somebody is got these metals in our body. And so the nice thing about muscle testing is you can test for a lot of different substances in a pretty short amount of time, and you don't have to take blood, don't have to take urine, don't have to do hair analysis, saliva analysis. And the other nice thing is it doesn't matter where it's at in the body, it'll be able to be tested for. So if it's hiding out in your fatty tissue, you'll still be able to test for that. Where again, if you are doing a blood test, if it's not in the blood and yet it's still it's in your body, but it's not in the blood, it will not show up in that test. So that's where muscle testing can be really good. There's definitely controversy about muscle testing, and there's also a lot of subjectivity with muscle testing. Believe it or not, those other tests, blood testing, urinalysis, hair analysis, there's a lot of subjectivity to those tests as well. And so it depends on how you read the test, whether you think somebody has something or not. So when it comes to muscle testing, going to someone that's been doing it a long time, someone that's doing it for the right reasons, and someone that's skilled at it is a really important thing when it comes to muscle testing. Dr. Rob in our office has been doing it for well over a dozen years of that kind of testing. So I feel very confident in sending people to him to be muscle tested. So that's some of the ways that we can test to see if someone has toxins. Obviously, you can look at some of the behavior, some of the other signs like dizziness and such, but there are so many different reasons why someone could have those symptoms that it really is important that you're going to a good practitioner that can really narrow it down to help you to figure out why you're having those symptoms, because toxins can really be hard to find sometimes. And so again, seeing a good practitioner really makes a big difference. So that's how a person can determine if they have these toxins that are leading to health issues. So what do we do about them though? So if we find out that we have them, we want to find out what we can do about them. So one of the greatest things that's that God gave us is that he made it so our bodies can detoxify. And so since the beginning of time, people have been exposed to toxins. We've obviously really ramped that up with adding these chemicals to our world that have never been here for the last 100 years. But definitely God created us with an ability for us to get rid of these toxins. And so one of the things we want to do for sure is support these systems that get rid of toxins, because if we support those systems and get rid of toxins before they can accumulate, that can lead to, it can prevent a lot of health issues, okay? And so even if a person has those health issues, supporting these systems can help the body finally get rid of the toxins as well. So we're going to talk about a few of them. Probably the biggest ones that we can work on would be like your skin, your liver, and your digestive health. Those are probably the three biggest ways that we get rid of toxins in our body. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about how we can get rid of toxins through supporting our liver, supporting our skin, and supporting our digestive system. So again, we know that George Burns had to have something going right with him in order for him to get rid of those toxins. And like I had mentioned, it can be genetics. Genetics can definitely play a role in how well we get rid of toxins. I don't know if you can see my dog in the background jumping up and down. He's super curious. He's kind of sad though too, because our son, we just took him to school this past weekend, and so he's lost his friend. Our neighbors who had a dog moved away a few months ago, and so they took their dog with them. And so So he's kind of sad right now. So he's looking for someone to take him for a walk. So let's finish this up by helping you guys figure out what you can do to help your get rid of toxins. So you can't change your genes, okay? There's nothing you can do to change your genes, but just because you have a gene doesn't mean it's going to have to cause a health problem or prevent a health problem. What I mean by that is we can turn these genes on and off, and we can also when we find out if we have a lack of a certain gene that's or a lack of an enzyme due to having a poor gene, we can do some things like take that enzyme potentially or take the product of what that gene was coding for. So then you can help yourself to overcome that genetic problem. So these are, I'm just going to show you this. You don't have to remember this at all. This is something you definitely want to use a practitioner's help with to understand. We run genetic testing on people. It's not genetic testing like, hey, you've got this gene, you're going to get this disease. That's not at all the type of testing we're doing. We look at, hey, you have this gene. This gene isn't coding exactly like it should be. And that predisposes you so that you don't do a very good job of making this enzyme, which therefore doesn't allow you to get rid of the toxin. So a great example is if we look at CBS. CBS is an enzyme in our body. It's coded for by a certain gene. And then what that enzyme does is that enzyme helps us to make a substance called glutathione. And glutathione helps us get rid of toxins. In fact, glutathione is your most powerful antioxidant in your body, and you make it yourself. And so the problem is if you have someone that's got a problem with this gene that makes CBS, they won't make CBS very well, and then they won't make glutathione very well, and now they won't be able to get rid of toxins as easy, okay? So every one of these genes here is like that. So we have SOD, which is superoxide dismutase, which is another way for us to get rid of toxins. But if we don't have that working as good as it should, then we're not going to be able to get rid of the toxins as easily as we should. And so we run these on people. I would not just go run this yourself and try to figure things out on your own. I think it's really important to have a good practitioner run it with you and then sit down with you and help you explain it. A lot of them come with reports. The biggest one we use is one called Strategene. I really like it. Comes with a great report, but I promise you that report is overwhelming to 99% of all people that get that report. And so having a doctor be able to go over it with you and helping you understand it is, I think, really important. But our genes can predispose us to not being able to get rid of toxins. So getting a genetic profile can really help you, because if you know this stuff, then you can do everything possible to support, like say CBS, to support it by taking the right cofactors, avoiding certain things in our life. All those things can be really important to help us. And if you don't know that, you wouldn't know what to do. So a leaky gut, your gut health plays a huge role in your ability to get rid of toxins. And having a leaky gut, we've mentioned this before in other talks, but understand that your gut is like a filtration system. And so your gut, it's a semi-permeable layer of cells that allows your food and your nutrients to get into your body, and tries to keep everything else out, from bacteria to chemicals. And so if you have a leaky gut, and I'm not going to go into all the details of what exactly a leaky gut is, but if you have damage, if you have a compromised filtration system, if you have a compromised digestive wall, it will allow things into your body that shouldn't. And then when you're trying to get them out of your body, you won't be able to get them out of your body like you should be able to. So having a leaky gut, having good gut health, plays a huge role in whether you can get rid of toxins or not. So if you're dealing with digestive health, you need to get it taken care of, or it could lead to toxic problems. It can lead to toxic overload. And then the other thing that people don't realize when it comes to gut health is I think a lot of times people think, well, if I have a gut health issue, I'll feel something wrong with my gut. And that's not always the case. In fact, most of the people that have a gut health issue, I think it's about 80 to 85% of all people that have a gut health issue don't even know that they have a gut health issue. They have other problems. They got like achy joints, or they got brain fog, they got vertigo, they got all these other symptoms throughout the body, and they don't know why they have these symptoms. And it literally could be that their gut is where the problem is, but they're focused on where the symptom is. And so having a leaky gut needs to be taken care of. But again, you got to know if you even have one. So again, working with a good health practitioner is largely very important. So your liver is how you get rid of toxins. Unfortunately, many people have very stressed livers because of the amount of toxins they get exposed to, and some of the toxins that they're purposely putting in their bodies, such as alcohol and smoking and some of the processed foods and such. And so our livers, really what they do is they filter our blood and take toxins out. And so when the person is dealing with a lot of toxins, they can get cirrhosis of the liver, or basically an inflammation of the liver. And so we want to support our liver. I think I've talked about this in other talks. One of the biggest ways you can support your liver is actually by eating healthy liver, which very few people that I know eat liver. I'm seeing more of a trend. I order beef for lots of our friends and our patients and such. And more and more people are asking for, sorry, that flies will not leave me alone. More and more people are asking for us to get the liver, where most people, like say 5-10 years ago, they just throw the liver in the garbage. And so eating liver can be really good. Now, I don't know if about you, I've had liver. I don't really like the taste of it. Some people love the taste of it. I don't. You can take desiccated liver as a supplement. It's not going to be as good as eating a fresh liver, but at least you're getting some of the benefits. And then you can also do things that help your support your liver. Like I said, one would be avoiding toxins, but another would be to put the right nutrients into our body. And so two things that really help with the liver to function the way they're supposed to is just looking to see if I had a slide on it. I think I do somewhere later. But milk thistle and dandelion root are both really good things for supporting our liver. So really important to have a good, healthy liver. If you can keep this little thing right here, called your gallbladder, highly recommend trying to keep that thing as healthy as possible, because you don't want to have to get that removed. You can live without it, but it's not as good as living with it. So really important that we're taking good care of our liver so that it can detoxify. Sweating. Sweating really important. Like I mentioned earlier, if we're sweating, we can get rid of toxins. If we're doing things that stop us from sweating, like antiperspirants, not a good idea. And so we want to have ways to be able to sweat. And so obviously exercise would be a big one. I'll talk about that in a minute, but sweating helps us get rid of toxins. So keeping good, healthy skin is really important. Probably one of the best ways to have healthy skin is to have a healthy liver and a healthy digestive system. So what you see with people that deal with lots of like acne and such is a lot of times that's either their liver or their digestive health is something's wrong with it, and that's why they're getting all these skin problems. You see with eczema, you see it with some of these other things like psoriasis. A lot of times, don't look at the skin as the problem. Look at the liver or the digestive tract, because that's usually where the problem is with a skin health problem. All right, yeah, so this is milk thistle and dandelion root. We try to kill them if they're in our yards. They're hard to kill. One of the reasons they're hard to kill is that they are really good at detoxifying toxins. So when you spray a toxin on it, they can get rid of that toxin pretty easily. So really important that we have that. So, all right, so these are some of the things that you can do to help on top of that. For sure, doing stuff to purify your air can be helpful, just because the air quality is so poorly. in our world from being inside and being outside. You can't filter the outside with an air purifier, but you can filter the outside with plants actually. And so trees, other plants in our environment, super, super helpful for us getting rid of toxins. That's why it's so important that we have these green areas around us, because they really help us. But you can do the same inside your house. So you can see that there's a list of plants that you can have inside your house that will help you get rid of it. So you don't have to go buy a really expensive air filter. Just buy some nice plants, take good care of them, and don't do like we do. Forget to water them and then kill them, because we, for some reason, cannot keep plants in our house. I think it's because we don't water them. But that being said, really important that you have good air quality. Exercise, like I mentioned, sweating, getting your body sweating, getting your body circulating, getting rid of fat cells. Fat cells is where we accumulate our toxins. We get rid of those fat cells. We have less place to have those toxins sit. And so we can get rid of them a lot easier. So really, exercise has many, many benefits, but that's just a few of them. Doing a regular cleanse. Our office, our whole team, we did a cleanse in the spring or late winter. We're going to do another one in September. You guys are more than welcome to join us. We do one called a Clear Bite cleanse, where you typically clean up your diet. You take supplements that help you get rid of toxins. You take supplements that help support your liver, help heal your gut, and then that can help your body to get rid of toxins. And it doesn't have to be super expensive. I've seen some of them out there. They're $400 or $500. They don't have to be super expensive. Doing even just cleaning up the diet can be a great way to detoxify. So like doing a Whole30. But adding the supplements can be helpful because they help support the liver and help heal the gut at the same time. So I know that Elizabeth is gathering a bunch of resources for you guys for tonight that I'm talking about, that you guys will have access to as well. I think, Elizabeth, how are you going to go about doing that?
Well, I already put some together on one of the slides that's
Okay.
coming up, but I can put together a PDF. And if people want to send me their email address in the chat, just make sure that it shows to Elizabeth Miller instead of everyone, unless you're totally fine with everyone seeing your email address. But if you send that to me, I can jot it down and I can make sure to get that PDF sent out to you once it's completed.
Perfect. Perfect. I forgot to mention, I had mentioned earlier, but the glutathione, you can take glutathione. So if your body's not very good at making it, you can take it. One thing I didn't mention and just want to briefly address is that how do you know if you've got these genetic issues, like that you have a harder time getting rid of toxins? It's pretty hard to know, but there are a few things that I tell people you can really look for. One would be how you respond to alcohol. And so I don't know if you guys know someone, or maybe you yourself are like this, but you might know of someone that has a drink or two and they just look like they're completely wasted, or they just get sick when they drink alcohol. Those people are probably very poor at getting rid of toxins. They're also, and I see this, there's people that have this, but I also see those same people that have that issue with alcohol usually have this with medications, that if they say that here's the side effects of this medication, that person has the side effects. So it doesn't matter what medication they take, they get those side effects. Those people are bad at getting rid of toxins, and those people have to really be careful. And so those are just a couple things that you can do to learn if you're poor at getting rid of toxins. But like I said, sometimes you just don't know, because you don't know why you have these health issues. You don't really associate them with toxins. But those are some things that you can watch for. So these are the resources that Elizabeth was talking about. So you can definitely, we're going to have this video up on YouTube, so you can definitely see this again if you want to go back and watch the video. If you want to take a picture, screenshot, whatever, right now you can do that. But these resources, so from the environmental working group, they always release this dirty dozen and the clean 15. Clean 15 are foods that are the most um, uh, the least likely to have toxins in them, and they're healthy for you. The dirty dozen are ones that these foods here are known to be have lots of chemicals on them. So you really want to make sure that you're doing organic if you're going to eat those foods. And then just looking at some of the ways that you can buy beauty products that don't have toxins in them, cleaning products that don't have toxins in them. Elizabeth, if you don't mind in that PDF, just adding in there too, like we had talked about doing reverse osmosis to people and air purifiers, maybe some good brands for those companies would be great.
Yep, I'll add more about cookware in there too.
Oh, excellent. Yep. I didn't talk about what good cookware would be, but stainless steel can be good. Probably one of your best ways to cook food is through stainless steel. But then there are other ones that Elizabeth can add to that as well. So these are just some of the ways that you can really try to lower that toxic load. And then, like I said, help your body to be as healthy as it possibly can. Again, you're not going to avoid toxins in this world. There's just no way. You'd have to, I don't even know where you could go. They say that toxins have reached up into the North Pole even. So you're going to get exposed to toxins. You want to minimize the amount that you get exposed to, and you want to maximize your body's ability to get rid of those toxins by helping support those systems in your body that get rid of toxins. And if you do that, it's not a guarantee that you're going to have great health, but it's definitely, you're putting the odds in your favor significantly more than if you're not doing those, taking those precautions and helping your body to work better. And like I said, whether you're doing it just for general health, you're doing it to prevent illness, whatever, you do these things, it doesn't just help with preventing Alzheimer's disease. It helps with preventing cancers and diabetes and so many of these other chronic health issues that I don't know why a person wouldn't want to take these measures so that they can be as healthy as they possibly can. And like I said, it doesn't have to be going and buying an expensive air filter. You can do it with plants. So it doesn't have to be a really expensive thing to do either to be able to eliminate these toxins in our environment and in our health. So, well, hopefully this has been helpful. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'll give you a minute to maybe or less to if you do have any questions or have any comments, but and if you want to ask a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask that question. But hopefully this has been helpful for you guys, and that this is just another way that we can help you from Vallejo to help you guys so that you can be as healthy as you possibly can be. If you are having any issues that you want us to work with, definitely this is our office's phone number. We do have that link right there, takes you to, we have videos, more videos on these topics, more information that you can learn and figure out how you can take best care of your body and how you can prevent going down that same path as a loved one or someone that you know. So again, if you have any questions, just, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was actually going to say, could you speak to whether massage would be another way that you can help your body detox? And then also, before people go, we had sent it out in our email a bit ago about the Clear Cleanse that we're doing as an office. And originally we put in there that if people wanted to let us know that they wanted to participate by basically today, that we would do $10 off the supplement bundle that goes with that cleanse. So I just wanted to offer that to the people who came tonight too, if they want to email info@valleowc.com. If you want to participate in that, we will honor that $10 off if you still email us tonight. So
cool. Yeah, thank you. And then to answer your question, yeah, massage, if anyone's gone and gotten a massage, you know that a lot of times they'll say at the end of it, well, make sure you drink lots of water, because what they were doing was they were moving toxins out of your body. And what can happen is if you're not drinking a lot of water, those toxins can land somewhere else in the body, and then they can actually cause aches and pains that you maybe didn't have before. So drinking lots of water can flush out those toxins. So definitely massage helps a person get rid of toxins. There's some massages that are very specific to helping get rid of toxins. Lymphatic drainage is one. And Michelle in our office is really good at that. But what it does is helps your lymph system, which your lymph system is helping your body circulate fluids throughout your body, including trying to help your body move toxins out of it. And so lymphatic drainage massage can be really helpful, but even deep tissue massage can be very helpful. So good question. Well, I don't see any questions, so either you guys are just done for the night, or I'm just so good at presenting that you guys, I handled everything for you guys. So either way, you guys are more than welcome at any time to ever email us if you have questions at info@valeowc.com. And we'll be doing another talk next month. I can't remember what we're speaking on, but we have a calendar that Natalie sends out just to let you know when the next one will be, and Elizabeth sends it out to all the Vallejo patients as well. So hopefully you guys can join us at the next one, and hopefully you guys again got great information tonight, and information that not only is information but transformational, that you'll actually be able to use it and help yourself to be as healthy as you can. So have a great rest of your night, and God bless.